And now we're recording. Biology. Biology comes down to one simple thing. Great, that pen doesn't work. We have a cell and we have a conduit or a vessel that delivers things to the cell. And biology is the study of living things, and the reason why we're living comes down to one thing, and that one thing is that all of our cells respire via aerobic respiration, which you should all know. That's all the time. If they're not respiring aerobically, they have a short window of anaerobic, and then unfortunately it's kaput, it's game over, the cell is dead. That's cellular death. With aerobic respiration, we need to deliver into that cell oxygen, and we need to deliver glucose. Let's balance it. And then what has to come out is CO2 and water. That's the process of aerobic respiration. Key concept is that we know with photosynthesis it produces glucose. And I'm going to put some arbitrary units on this to really simplify. And Miss Newbit will shout at me after this. There's 10 joules that holds those 6 oxygen atoms together. There's 100 joules that holds glucose together. But in order to produce the byproducts, it's only 20 joules. So if we then put our little chemistry hat on, and we have an energy profile, what we have is a little graph that looks like that. Because there is so much energy holding glucose together, when we break those down to build those, we can see that that's our products. We have a surplus of energy available. And it's that energy where we use it for movement. And that can be active transport, moving into a cell or out of a cell. Number 2, we maintain an internal temperature. Is that still in focus, Miss? Yeah, internal temp. And that is going to be key to today. And then the final thing we use the energy for, that is building larger molecules. That comes under the banner of metabolism, the rate of which all chemical reactions occur, this being the main one, and this being what the energy is utilized for. Today's focus is why do we have to maintain our internal temperature at 36.7 degrees? One reason. Anyone like to shout it out? Yes, Emma? The enzymes. Perfect. Correct. Enzymes. So, with enzymes, biology is very wordy. Unlike physics, where it's all mathematical, and chemistry, which is more mathematical. Can we go to this question, please, which is on page 6. So what's going to happen is I'm going to talk through how I would answer this question, and then I'm going to give you a short period of time to answer a similar question taken from another year. Because this question focuses on enzymes. There's only so much they can ask on enzymes, and it's our responsibility to make you familiar with questions on enzymes. Different parts of the body, or different parts of the human digestive system, help break down molecules of fat so they can be absorbed. Describe. We should now know the differences between a describe and an explain. I don't want to put anyone under pressure. Would anyone like to shout out what describe means? Emma? List the events in a chronological or logical order. Thank you, Emma. So now we know what we have to do. We have to list the events in a chronological order. And it even tells you to gain full marks, we've got to name the enzyme, where it's produced, what's its products, and any other razzmatazz that goes with it. So, fat. Unfortunately, we use the word fat, and even the question uses the word fat, but fat is a solid at room temperature. It's oil when it has melted. The actual correct biological term for fat is lipid. So what's the enzyme that breaks down a lipid? Well, that would be, they all end in A's, that would be called lipase. So I'm just brainstorming at the moment, and then we'll put it into some chronological order. So lipids are broken down by lipase, and the products of that reaction, and this is quite a difficult one to remember, this is where the old tasomai will help you out, it is glycerol and fatty acids. They are the products. So we've got the name of the enzyme, and we've got what is produced. We have to look at where these enzymes are made. Now this brings into play an organ called the pancreas. Also the small intestine produces these enzymes. So we've now got the where, the absorption of the products, glycerol and fatty acids, takes place in the small intestine, and that absorption is into the blood. And again, this all links back to what we talked about here in aerobic respiration. Now that's glucose, but if you deplete the body of sugar, so there's none left, people fast, it's a real fad at the moment to deplete the body of sugar, then what happens is, because there isn't any sugar, you use fatty acids and glycerol as your respiratory substrate, and then you lose weight. So that's why we store our fat. It's a backup bank reserve if no glucose is available. Okay, so we've got the enzyme, we've got where it's produced, but there's these other chemicals involved, and this is where the niche part of the specification comes in. The liver, that's a terrible diagram of the liver, produces something called bile. Bile is stored in the gall bladder, which is a little area just here, and then that feeds into the small intestine. So what is the responsibility or function of bile? Well, what bile does is when fat, again it's a lipid, and I apologise for the way the example would have used the word fat, when the lipid enters into the body, it's quite large, and as we know with chemical reactions, what we need to do is speed that up. So bile, produced in the liver, stored in the gallbladder, fed into the small intestine by something called the bile duct. Bile attaches to the lipid molecule, and it breaks it or splits it into smaller droplets, and by doing so it increases the surface area of the droplet, which in turn increases the rate by which lipase will collide with the fat or the lipid droplet, hence increasing the rate of breakdown. Any other thing that I could add? Now I think the common sense part, why have we got a mouth? Well, that's where the food goes in, and then we've got a thing called a tongue and we've got teeth. So this type of digestion is called chemical digestion because it involves the enzymes. We also have something called physical digestion, and that's the role of our teeth and our tongue, and they will break down large insoluble fat molecules like bacon, cheesecake, and they'll turn it into smaller, that's probably what I should have put, and then they are turned into soluble molecules and then enter into the blood. There's more than 6 points there in order to be successful, and it's this niche area of bile and the responsibility of bile. What I'm now going to ask you to do